Well, I think that there is a connection, a visceral connection, a spiritual connection that's usually immediate. It's not that people have to look at my work for a long time in order to appreciate it more. It's usually a pretty fast impact of people remembering what they were like in their youth, that sort of speaks to something that's, maybe it's the child in all of us, I'm not sure. But I do paint young people predominantly. Not exclusively, but predominantly, and mostly women, although not exclusively women. I do paint men, and I love painting men, but I also have begun to really enjoy painting older people. My routine for painting is, it's not always the same. It depends on what the model needs in order to get the photos that I need in a photo shoot. So frequently it's what the photo shoot needs to bring about the reference material that I will need to do a painting.
Okay. Both of you, okay, relax. Both of you need to step back. I want to, almost the same thing. I want you to go to the side. Your head is, not so on your shoulders. Sit up straight.
She's very intense when she's working.
Way back.
Her personality, she's very serious, and
lean it, yeah.
you don't respond while she's working. She will talk to you, she'll tell you what to do, but you don't respond because it will throw her off. She's just in the zone. She's very motivated.
Yep, put your arms around her.
She wants it to.
Can you put your head, turn your head the other way towards the sun?
Relaxed. Whether you feel comfortable in your pose, that's how it's supposed to look. And I remember listening to her say, "Soften your eyes." So, you know, it would make me look like I was more comfortable and peaceful.
Abby, chin up in the air. Actually, put it right up against her arm that's in the sun. No, your face up against her arm.
I think that her model choices tend to be young because there's such an innocence with young girls and younger women who they don't necessarily understand all the evils in the world.
I think that there is a very unique method that I have of what I'm looking for. For instance, I will frequently have a painting in mind or a series of paintings in mind where I am looking for a specific type of model. And then I will start praying about it and asking God to just show me who I might work with. And if I trust that, He generally shows me who they are, and they're always right on the money. And sometimes, not sometimes, all of the time, the models always bring something more to the table than I had first expected. And so it's this wonderful collaboration where God supplies more than I even expected.
Get in front of Evelyn. Turn around, Ev. The sun's coming that way. I want your back to the sun.
When I am stumped by a painting, not if I am stumped with a painting, but when I am, and it does happen regularly. In the painting that you folks have been following, I was stumped twice. And in both of those places, I felt like I couldn't paint my way out of a paper bag. And I sort of fell on my face before my God and said, Lord, I can't do this without you. What do I do? And in both cases, there were two very nice solutions to the problem. One was getting the model in for another sitting in front of me so that I could see her face and see the bone structure under her skin. And in the second one, it was a matter of the second problem area. It was simply a matter of turning the canvas on its, the panel on its side with all my reference material on its side, so I was simply looking at it in a different way. So I am frequently stumped in a painting, but I'm a good problem solver. And when you want to solve problems, you have to be very creative about it, and creativity is what it's all about.
She did a painting called Carried Away. It was, she entered it into an art show, and to do more in-depth painting, she had me pose for her live in her studio in the position that I had posed for the painting, and that was very neat. There are a few people in the town that I moved to that I've told. I like talking about her work. I don't bring up that I've modeled for her because I know it needs to be all about her painting, and I don't want to be, oh, so that's the painter that you model for. I've showed some people and not told them that I'm in some of her paintings, and they're amazed. Some of them believe it, some of them don't. But when they look at their work, the work that she's done, whether you do it with a paintbrush or with your fingers like Mary Jane, the paintings that she does are amazing.
Originally, I was painting with my, as a regular painter with all the tools of the trade, and quite a few years into my career, actually at the height of my career, I took a medication for 19 days that did some damage, permanent damage in my motor strip, that has left me with this resultant tremor. But I took this medication because something kind of extraordinary happened. I was hit by lightning. My husband and I were both hit by lightning, and it was a pretty pivotal experience in that I just emotionally couldn't get past it. My husband did, but it took me longer. So I took a medication, and the side effect of that medication is something called a tardive tremor, and it never goes away. So it changed how I was able to do my work, and indeed for 5.5 years, I actually thought I would never paint again. I tried doing all kinds of things, and I did do sculpture and clay work and other things that I thought I might be able to make my hand do. But it was when I began to actually paint with my fingers, with the water miscible oils, that I began to have some real success. I came to the conclusion that I really wasn't quite alive unless I was painting. So even if I was painting at less than what I had before, I was still looking for some breakthrough of a way to to get through not being able to paint. So that 5.5 years was a tremendous learning curve. I tried lots of other things besides painting that didn't work, but I also came away with the idea that I loved color. I didn't just want to work in black and white. I didn't want to just work in clay that didn't have much color. I really, really had a renewed sense of wanting to paint lovely color.
I love her palette and the way that she uses colors and mixes colors, she has a lot of different devices that she uses to help still her tremoring right hand, which of course is her dominant hand and the hand that she used to hold a paintbrush in. Now she cannot steady her hand long enough to hold a paintbrush. Her faith certainly kept her very grounded, always hopeful, even though she was very honest and real in expressing her grief and really her sadness and depression, because suddenly what she feels she's able to do, she was not, or what she was gifted to do, to paint, she wasn't able to do, and that certainly presents an identity crisis, and that brings everyone through a low point.
I have met one other woman, no kidding, with a condition like mine, on the same, the whole right side of the body that shakes. And it was funny, she looked at me, and it was from the same reason and pretty much from the same group of drugs, of medications. And she laughed and she said, but you're much worse than I am. And I was like, oh gosh, that's a terrible thing to be known for. But nonetheless, she was selling my artwork. She was in a gallery and she was selling my artwork, and she sold my work with great care and great tenderness and with great real empathy. And so yes, I have met one that was remarkably similar in a very unique situation. It was pretty remarkable to meet her.
Her work certainly had more of a classical appearance to it. Prior to it, the brush strokes were smoother, the lines were able to be more precise, but currently her work evokes a bit more of an impressionistic style, but nevertheless the same attention to detail is quite evident in and it looks certainly very realistic, just as realistic, I would say, as the previous work, but the style is a little bit more impressionist versus tightly classical.
I signed my work with a thumbprint made into a Q. In years past, I used to sign my work Q cross, and after the tremor, which is pretty disruptive in most parts of my life, I began to have difficulty making a signature that was the same each time. So the thumbprint made it into a Q was really nice, and I was also really glad that my name wasn't Kowalski or something with a K, or something that would be more difficult to sign. But I really actually do like signing my name with a thumbprint.
poetry book is beautiful. All the poems that she writes to go with the paintings, it just fits so well. It's describing the painting, but in so many words, I guess. It's a very creative book, and even her poems are just as great as her paintings. The things that she comes up with, I couldn't do it.
She started coming up with poems. Poetry would come to her mind that have to do with themes that she's painting, things that perhaps the models are going through as she's painting them. And so she started writing and compiling poetry that came as a result of her time painting. And she, a friend of hers, started reading her poetry and really suggested and encouraged her to publish them somehow.
In 2004 was just as I finished signing the painting Carried Away. And Carried Away is one of my favorite paintings. It truly is. People always ask, oh, what is your favorite painting? But I've got to say, I've got a handful of favorite paintings, and that is one. And the painting is in a good home. However, I finished signing the painting, and I had 57 titles, working titles, and they're kind of sticky noted up on my easel as I come up with them. And all of those words help really drive the title. And so I'm always trying to have the perfect title for the composition, and to have the composition support the title. So I had all these 57, but I had decided on Carried Away, and I couldn't throw them all away. And they were beautiful words that were very descriptive of the painting. And I was on my knees and, dealing with all these little titles. And I just said, Lord, what more do you want me to give to you than what I've already given you? And the answer was the poetry. So I embarked on something completely new, late in a career, and I wrote some essays that went with it. And one of my lovely models, Jana, was able to be my editor. And she was able to put it into a logical format that I was not able to. So she actually took everything and then began to ask pertinent questions. So the book really was a collaborative effort.
So she came to me. I am a writer, and I enjoy. She and I, we're friends. I think beyond being working partners, and so we like to share ideas with each other. So she came to me about this idea, and I said, I would love to help you do that. And so. But for me, I need a little bit more structure. So I said, okay, let's break these poems and the paintings that you've done down to themes. What do your poems and paintings really represent? And so we structured the book based on themes. I think hope is one, courage is one, identity is one, and at the beginning of each chapter, we compiled ideas for opening essays, and so I was instrumental in helping her to write those opening essays, and then I compiled the book. I ordered it, did the table of contents, prepared it for printing, and I published it for her as well.
I have to say it was completely unexpected in how well it was received by the public. We are in our second, we're almost through our second printing, and I had anticipated to do a third print. I do anticipate doing a third printing.
I've gone with her to 3 shows, I think, and worked in her booth to see how she interacts with people interested in looking at her paintings, and that's a very neat process. people are just shocked when they hear how she paints. They almost don't believe it.
She spends quality time with each of her, each person that waits to speak with her. She will spend as long as it takes to answer each person's questions, and she spends time asking them questions as well to try to get to know them and to try to find out what they're really asking, or how they might, what life experiences they might have that help them to connect to her work.
People kept bringing me my postcards that I had sent them and said, give us something bigger than this. We can't afford your paintings, but we want what you have. And that was a real delight. So I was kind of badgered into doing the print part of my work, my business, but it certainly is my bread and butter. And people love owning them. And I get photographs in the mail of where they're hung. One woman has some of my paintings over her, some of my prints over her washing machine. And I think, this is not what I necessarily would have envisioned, but she told me that's where she spends most of her time. So I was very honored to have it be there. Sometimes they're, next to their nice quiet chair. Sometimes it's, it's in their kitchen, in a place where they start their day. So I feel really privileged to have people want an image. So the messages that I want them to take away are to stay in the presence of what I've done. I have a long-range vision, and that is 200 years. I want my work to be part of the family of painters that I am in, that goes back to Michelangelo and Rembrandt and those guys, and Bouguereau in the 1800s, and who knows in the next 200 years. But I want to be a part of that family, so I want my work to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And I have to say, that has been a prayer of mine, if you will, for the last 40 years. And even if it's not answered in 40 more years yet ahead, I do have that long-range vision that my work will hopefully stand up to the tests of time. My name is Mary Jane Q. Cross, and I'm a painter. I live in Newport, New Hampshire, and I love what I do for a living.